Haidong! In this video, we're going to talk about Bankuk 1's aspects, part 2. So last time we talked about the first move, right? So let's talk about another major aspect of Bankuk, at least well, all the Bankuk forms, but it's introduced in Bankuk 1, and that's going to be just the way you move in Bankuk 1. This is going to be similar to Synchrony, right? But it's going to be a little bit different. Now, I hinted at this in the beginning of the other video, right? But one major thing to think about is just the way you move. Now, if you've done a few Bankuk forms, ideally all of them, right? But if you've done a handful of them, you know the motion is just very different, right? So if we talk about, and these two ideas are going to be very similar, right? So synchrony as well as the way you move. Now, the way you move in Sangsu is very much two-part. So for example, there's the advance and then there's the follow-up. So for example, super basic, step prepare, step cut. Okay, obviously don't do like the head bob thing, right? But again, just step prepare, step cut, step prepare, step cut, that kind of thing, right? Now obviously, as you become more and more proficient at this, you want that all in one motion, right? So it's a yarn, right? You're pushing yourself in, but you still have that advancing motion and then that coming in motion. Bankuk is going to be a little bit different, at least in certain parts of it. So again, let's actually keep going with it, right? So Sangsu is very much pop, pop. Yedo even is different as well, right? So it's no longer, again, pop, pop. It's going to be actually leading more with your sword. So for example, in the beginning, right, so if you're here, you're leading with the sword and kind of following behind it, pop, pop, right? So it's like your sword is leading your movement. Okay, now that's not always going to be categorically true, right? But like if we're here, right, so still you can kind of feel your blade initiating the motion. Bankuk is going to be different. Bankuk is actually going to be the opposite. Bankuk, you are twisting your body, usually twisting, you're engaging your body first, and you're going to use your sword to snap it, right? So for example, the very beginning of Bankuk 1, so pop, pop, right? So you're here. Now you could still sort of play with this in terms of a Bankuk, or in terms of a Sangsu. You're kind of like step, prepare, step, cut, but you're going to completely miss the sheer power of Bankuk. Bankuk is one of the most powerful styles. It's probably my favorite of the styles I've learned. It's just raw, rolling power. I love it. So we're here. Now, if I was Sangsu, I would keep the sword movement going and then kind of keep moving. Obviously, that's not what happens in the form. In the form, we're here. Sword stays where it is. I'm going to walk, I'm going to kind of like twist my body around it, again, almost like I'm curling in that potential energy. I'm here. Sword is still more or less where it is, and then bang, right? So it's like I have my sword, and I'm kind of twisting around it, and when I untwist my body, the sword slashes out. So this is a very different style than probably, again, from the other two before, right? And this is something that just happens over and over and over for pretty much all of the forms, right? 7's a little bit weird. 7's a special boy. But at least 1 through 6, this is very, very common. So if we just keep other examples, right? So in the beginning of this one, again, cut, curl around it, right? Again, feel your body kind of like tensing in, kind of twisting, feeling that torque, and then bang, right? And again, once again, twist, and then pop. Again, kind of twisting around it, feel your shoulder get behind it, thrust, right? So that's very different. Right? This is something where your body is producing so much more power that your sword just has to follow along to keep up. Now, this is also true for aspects of it that seem similar to things we've seen. That was vague. But, so for example, later in this form, we have the 1, 2, and then a very, very common pop, pop, right? That's something we've seen many times. We saw it in all 3 versions, or 3 styles, right? So in Shimsong, Ea, right? Yedo 2, Ea. Bankuk 1, center, center, Ea. Not say Ea, but yeah. So we have that combination in all 3 versions, but notice how they're different in each one. So in Shimsung, I'm literally just charging at someone, hoping to scatter them, and this is very much just step, prepare, step, cut, step, prepare, step, cut. It still has that synchrony. In Yedo, it's a lot more about that, like just trying to get at the person's head. So switch, switch, you're really feeling that fast motion. Bankuk, again, my favorite. I'm trying to not bull rush the camera too much, right? But here, I really am pushing with my body, and just like, 1, 2, 1, 2. You really feel that pushing yourself underneath, and then smash through. Push yourself underneath, and smash through. From the side, just in case that wasn't as obvious. So again, Shimsung, pop, 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 pop. Yedo, pop, 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 right? So you have a little more of that top. Bankuk, push through, pop, obviously faster than that. That's the idea. You're really getting your body behind it. You have a lot more power, and your momentum is all kind of like roiling to get a little more power. Power, power, power. And I'm saying power a lot, but it's really good. It's a really good aspect of Bankuk. We're not even at the end of the video, and you can already guess what I'm going to be asking you to do for your drills, right? So think about the same combination, right? So you've seen things in all of these forms that pretty much are mimicked in each section. See how that style affects how you do it, right? So now that you have an idea, at least my personal interpretation, again, this is actually all personal interpretation. This was never taught to me per se. This is just something that I've felt as I went through these forms. So obviously, if you've been taught differently, go with that, right? But just feel how much raw power you can get by engaging your body first, and then kind of like using that, either that twisting motion or getting yourself behind it, and feel that snapping power you can get behind your sword. So try that with your form. So try doing that with a Sangsu and see how it doesn't quite do the same. Try it with a Yedo, not quite the same. Try doing a Sangsu Kikentaichi or the Synchrony. It's not the same. So this is really where the eye opens sometimes, and you realize that each section, each style, is very distinct according to what you want. Now, each of these are going to have a way. So for example, like I have an affinity towards the Bankuk. They're my favorite style. Versus other people really like that really top, kind of like, almost like flourishy feel of Yedo. And some people like the little bit more traditional, a little bit more Japanese-esque style of Sangsu. I love Bankuk. I will defend it to the end, unless if I learn another style, which is even better. But I really love Bankuk. As you can probably tell, I'm a little bit too excited, so let's keep going. Let's talk about Synchrony. Synchrony is going to be very similar to what we just talked about. So Synchrony, the type of Synchrony I'm talking about is going to be Kikentaichi, right? So this is, again, a Japanese term that I've taken from Kendo. Again, thank you, Isabella Church Sensei. So the idea is, again, Kikentaichi, so ki, breathing, ken, as in sword, so sword, ki, ken, tai, body, ichi, all in one motion. Again, the reason I like that specific term is it's a lot easier to kind of ground yourself on what to focus on. So for example, if I watch you, I'm like, oh, better synchrony, or to tell you to get better synchrony. And you'll be like, all right, am I twisting too much? Am I doing, haza? Like, what am I doing? Versus, like, oh, Kikentaichi, like, all right, which one is not working, right? Like, oh, I feel like my body and my breathing are pretty tight, but my sword is lagging, right? So I like to use the word Kikentaichi because it's my favorite type of synchrony, but it's going to be mushed a little bit according to the other two styles. So Kikentaichi is really good for Sangsu, right? It's really good for Sangsu, but for Yedo and Bankuk, you need to modify a little bit. So let's talk about how we can modify Kikentaichi. Now, I mentioned that the synchrony is going to be very similar to what we do in our Heidosei, when we do in our basics, right? When we do our switch cuts. So for example, just a review, right? So we have a nice Heidosei. So instead of myar, right? Again, don't do the head bob, right? So it's not myar, because super weak, not great. Cool. Versus, again, almost like you're translating the mass of your body, right? I'm going to shift over this way. Translating, turning, pop, right? Pop, pop, right? It's going to be a lot more, the difference is subtle, right? So it's not twist, throw and cut, right? It's all in one motion, but the absorbance is still there. So there is still that initial push, but you're absorbing it with the sinking of your stance. So your body is the one that's going to absorb the cutting motion. This is what you're going to do in Bankuk. So let's talk about that synchrony in that same motion we did earlier, right? So if we're here and we just did our dive cut, right? Let's just make sure we have it right. So pop, pop, right? So you're here with your right foot forward, and you're going to be stepping in with it, right? So the way you synchronize is again going to be more prepare, right? And when you throw the cut out, so it's not going to be that back foot coming in, it's going to be your knee, or your body absorbing it, right? So as opposed to the back knee coming in, it's going to be pushing out, right? Same thing, tuck, again, really feel yourself curling, right? And kind of get behind it, thrust. Again, it's pushing into your body as opposed to, again, that back foot coming in. Now, you do that for a few moves, right? So, for example, to a certain degree, you do this with the 1-2 kind of motion. Actually, not as much now that I kind of think about it. But yeah, so in general, the synchrony is going to be more about your body absorbing as opposed to your feet absorbing. Make sense? And this is going to be true for, again, other aspects of the form. Right, so for example, the really big dive cut that's at the end, near the end, right? We're just kind of like 1, 2, smash, right? If I do that and try to use that stance, again, try to use the back foot, things are going to get kind of weird. I'm going here, I'm like, right? It's not going to be the same versus if I simply use the stance to absorb my motion. I'm here, I'm 1, 2, smash, right? I'm twisting into the stance, but I'm not, again, sliding the back foot, but my stance is absorbing the motion. I think my past self made a good judgment about splitting this video in twain because, yeah, these are both going to be pretty long videos. So, I know this is something that you just need to, think about, meditate upon, and just try it out, right? So this is something that's not going to happen to you if you just think about it. You have to go through the form and actually work with this concept. So for example, you can be like, yes, from a theoretical standpoint, I do understand how to do Teidosei Kiken Taichi as opposed to a Sodosei Kiken Taichi, as opposed to a Chiansei. Like, cool, dope, but like, do it, right? So you're gonna feel a lot more core activation in this style because you're just, again, curling around your core, and then your extremities are the ones that are becoming like lashing out to get a little more power. So again, I highly recommend just go through a couple forms, really think about how you twist and how you really push with your body first, to kind of see how you're doing. So with that, so again, make sure you stay safe, so don't overdo it, don't like break your back, literally, right, so don't get hurt. So stay safe, stay humble, and keep training, and in fact, actually train. Actually try to, pull this stuff off. Haidong.